Welcome everyone to the Edward Jones Chatting Cage. Scott Braun, Jonathan Mayo, Jim Callis from MLBpipeline.com. And of course, viewers, tweet, call, whatever you want. Get your questions into us about, what are we talking about?
Our favorite recipes?
Yes, our favorite draft recipes. The MLB draft is coming tonight and tomorrow and the next day, and we will be covering that as well on MLB.com. So first off, Jim, why don't you set the scene for us? What's the theme of this draft compared to years past?
Theme of this draft is hitters. I think we're going to see 6 hitters go with the first 6 picks. It may even extend a little past that, but that would be a record. And I think we're going to see 22 or 23 first-round picks are going to be position players, and that would also be a record. It's a good year for hitters. It's not a very good year for pitchers, especially on the college side.
I like that. Do you?
Yeah, I mean, every year is different, so it's nice to have something different to talk about. And it kind of works out nicely because some of it is the pitching is weak, so you're going to have more hitters taken. But a lot of it is just there are a lot of really good hitters. And I really like high school hitters, so it's been fun to write up these guys.
So let's start with the catcher who is projected by many to go #1 overall, Adley Rutschman. First off, do you have him projected #1?
As of right this minute, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll do one more mock late afternoon. That's the one we use as the official scorecard during draft night that we'll keep referring to. But if I had to file it right now, he would still be my #1 guy. But I think the Orioles are contemplating different things.
Yeah, I would do the same thing, and I think it's fair to say whether we file at 5:20 or 5:30, whatever time we file.
You keep pushing up that deadline.
I'll push it as far as I can go. I want to push for edits during like the 6 o'clock hour. But anyway, we aren't going to know. The Orioles are going to play this very close to the vest. We may not know until about 5 minutes before the pick, if then, who they're going to pick. We may find out on the air at MLB Network. It's right after 7 p.m.
Is he a can't miss #1? Is this more pressure on Baltimore, say, to nail this pick because we could look back and say that guy was the best player in the draft?
Well, you always need to get the #1 overall pick right because if you're picking there, you have a bad team and you need to get the pick right. But no, I think, I mean, we've done all kinds of historical perspective articles. I've had guys tell me they think he's the best catching prospect in the last 30 years, even better than Buster Posey and Joe Mauer. I think the consensus, Jonathan, is he's the best. If he goes #1 overall, he's the best #1 overall pick probably since Bryce Harper in 2010. So, I mean, could you make an argument for Bobby Witt Jr.? Sure you could. Is Andrew Vaughn's bat potentially really special? Sure it is. But in this draft, if it were me, I would take Adley Rutschman.
And keep in mind, Mike Elias, who's now the general manager, was with Houston. They missed on 2 #1 overall picks, and they survived. So that could be one way of looking at it, or it could be a cautionary tale. And it's first time in the general manager seat. I don't know that he wants to do that. So I'm thinking he's likely not to get too clever. There's a lot of posturing and negotiating going on behind the scenes. And so it may come down to player B, they have a set deal on, and then at the last minute, they'll go to Adley Rutschman and say, we have this guy locked up, will you sign for this? And that may determine what happens at, 7:02 p.m. Eastern time.
Because obviously it's also about the slot money that you have. You can use some of that money in other parts in the draft. And for Baltimore, for example, they need quantity and quality. There's a lot to build up in that system.
Right. I think you can make a better argument for them. We've talked about this ad nauseum. If they had multiple picks, and if there weren't teams like the Diamondbacks or the Rays or even the Dodgers and the Yankees who had multiple picks before they get to their second pick. It's not when the Astros took Carlos Correa, and they loved Carlos Correa, so this wasn't like a money saver. Yes, they saved money. That was the bonus. But they had 2 extra picks early that they could they could force guys down and get them. There are way too many teams to have certainty that, well, we're going to try to push this guy down to us in the second round. That guy's probably going to be gone.
Mm-hmm. I want to get back to Bobby Witt Jr. actually for a moment. I was able to see him a lot more and in person too in some of these games, some of these high school all-star games. When I looked at him, I saw a potential superstar. And I'm not getting paid to scout these guys, but how good do you think he can be at the next level? And is he a lock for #2 to Kansas City?
Yeah, I mean, again, this stuff's also fluid because Michael Elias is taking the Astros playbook and playing this very close to the vest, so it can change. I feel like Witt to the Royals at 2 is a bigger lock than Rutschman to the Orioles at 1. I think we did this game.
We did, yeah.
Bobby Witt, 9th inning home run. That they cranked it out there. He won all kinds of home run derbies.
That's at Wrigley Field, too, and it was raining, so it was a little lighter crowd, but he was the star.
Yeah, and we saw him at the All-Star game, at the high school home run derby, the All-Star game. He's putting balls up on the concourse at Nationals Park. No, I think he's got a chance to be a superstar, and that's why I was saying, like, I would take Rutschman, But if the Orioles say took Witt, I mean, you could easily make an argument. I mean, you're talking about a potential 5-tool shortstop.
Up the middle,
who could be
premium position guy, yeah.
60s across the board on the 20 scouting scale and great makeup. So, again, I mean, I think you'd take Rutschman too, wouldn't you?
I would take Rutschman, but yeah, I think an argument for Witt could easily be made. And for people who, we see on Twitter all the time, like, if the Orioles don't take Rutschman, there's going to be rioting in the streets. I'm like, no. But I think that if they took Witt, you could make that argument. I mean, you can build a team around the shortstop. Now, I think a catcher more so because he's involved in every single pitch, which is why I would take Rutschman. But at least it's close in terms of that argument.
Are there any teams that you're pinpointing for this draft and saying, I want to see what they do specifically because they have an interesting case?
Well, I think the easy one is the Diamondbacks, right? Because
Yeah.
they've got seven picks in the top 55 or whatever it is. They have 4 first-round picks. That's crazy. So they have a chance to really impact their system, which has been getting better over the last couple of years. I think they've drafted well recently. They've been aggressive internationally, so they can have this huge influx of talent. I look at the Rays last year, and they had about 5 picks, and all 5 of those guys are in their top 30 now. So I think that's what they want to try to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's a golden opportunity to really stock up the farm system. And it'll be interesting, too. I mean, the Dodgers, for all the success they've had at the big league level, they've got 2 first-round picks, too, and they've got a bunch of money to spend. So it'll be interesting to see what they can do.
Okay, let's get on to the mock draft just for a moment because this tweet really won things over among the Twitterverse. Remember this?
I missed that
This is the
originally.
day to really show it off, too.
I missed this tweet originally because I think the MLB Pipeline crew, which had fun dressing me up as Hamlet at one point and a couple other things, this was on a weekend, so I never saw it. And somebody made a comment, "Oh, you never commented on more cowbell," and I was
Right.
like, "What are you talking about?" So
That's outstanding. I feel I've got a little FOMO right now. I feel like I'm missing out.
You're not in this?
I'm not. No one.
You're not superimposed?
I wasn't cowbelled, but that was outstanding. That's right up there with when we did the prospect show and they had the little Mackenzie Gore love letter thing here in the network. So
More mocks.
More
What
mocks.
is it like to put it together, though? How much goes into just thoughts and feel versus speaking to scouts and teams?
honestly, I wait for Jim's and then I copy and paste his.
That's what I do.
And change a couple names around. Yeah, it's talking to scouts, and I think as we get closer to today, we do more and more due diligence. I think Jim really outlined it really well with the first one in the spring, where you kind of said top 10, I talked to a lot of people, middle 10, talk to some people, then you start throwing darts a little bit.
Yeah.
And you try, I mean, even now, like we're all talking to all, well, not all 30 teams. The Red Sox aren't picking in the first round, but talking to all the teams in the first round, the teams that are picking in the back half, that they have no idea who's going to get to them. So if you're lucky, for me, you get like a bucket of players that they're interested in. You run a name by them. That's if they'll tell you what he's strongly in the mix. Then you go with that guy, and you just kind of have to hope that the draft, plays that way. Last year, Matthew Liberatore, we had no idea he was going to get down to 16. Right? So I think things like that happen every year that kind of blow it up once the draft starts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I mean, and you can almost get too much information too. Like I think between teams and advisors, I hate to think of how many people I talk to for a regular mock. I mean, it might be 50 or more, and you get conflicting. It's almost like there's too much information. Like, okay, this guy's going to go here. Oh no, they wouldn't take that guy. And it's almost too much. So you try to get a feel for. It's more art than science. I think you try to get information and then come up with scenarios that make sense.
Yeah, and the worst thing that happens is when you think you have it all lined up, and then you get some information, and the second you take one thing out, I mean, it's like Jenga.
It is, right? It all falls
You take
apart.
one thing out, and you're like, all right, I put him here, and that opens up 2 holes. And so I know there have been times in past years where I leave a guy with a team, and I know they're not taking him. But if I move him last minute, then I'm in trouble. So I just leave him there.
Yeah, well, that happened to me last year. I got real late from right before we were filing for the office about Kyler Murray, and it was going to necessitate blowing up my whole first round as to because it wasn't just I'm going to flip 2 guys. It was like I'm going to have to move like 8 or 10 guys around. I was like I couldn't confirm it, so I was like I can't go Kyler Murray number 9
had it.
Oakland. And I even said to you, I said this is going to really bother me if like this winds up. I didn't tell you what it was, but I said this thing if it happens, it's going to bother me. And then like 40 minutes later, I found out it's going to happen. and it was too
Luckily,
late.
his
to
mic wasn't hot when that happened. So that would have been bad.
We were in commercial break, and then the mock falls apart. So if you're following the draft, you're going to see a lot of these two from MLBpipeline.com, Jim Callis and Jonathan Mayo. Right now on the Edward Jones chatting cage, we have a video caller, and his name is Lou. And Lou, what do you have for us?
Good afternoon to you all gentlemen out there. God bless you. And my question from Mr. Callis and Mr. Mayo is regarding Mr. Jack Leiter. Which team do you think that will be best suited for him as a draft pick to be selected to?
Well, I think the team he's going to be playing for next spring is the Vanderbilt
Commodores.
Commodores.
Yep.
Yeah, that's where I was going with that. I think he's probably the most unsignable guy in the draft. We obviously know Al a little bit working with him here. We saw Jack in the Under Armour. We had Al.
Yeah, we did.
Came up in the booth.
I saw him in Tournament Stars, too.
And
I
they're
like
in a
him.
great position. I mean, the Vanderbilt program is a great program. Might be the best program in college baseball. I think Al didn't get to go to college because he signed to play professionally out of high school, and he wants that opportunity for his son. And it doesn't sound like, I don't know if there's any dollar amount that's necessarily going to get Jack Leiter signed. So the rumor is that if it were, he'd like to play for one of the New York teams, the Mets or the Yankees. But I don't think we're going to hear his name called tonight.
No, I don't. We may not hear his name called at all. Maybe he goes in the 34th round. Sometimes that happens. But I think he is going to Vanderbilt. He'll be eligible in 2 years. So he doesn't even necessarily have to go for 3.
That's big.
It mitigates the risk of, a guy can get hurt pitching. No matter how well pitchers are taken care of at Vanderbilt or any college program. So I have a feeling we'll be talking quite a bit about young Mr. Leiter in 2 years' time.
Which is perfect. And Al's right here. He works with us, so we can ask him all the time about his son. So let's get to some tweets right now, and we'll start with It's Sal Jr. He said, if I'm a projected second or fourth round pick, get selected in the first, and he puts in parentheses, signability, shouldn't I or agent be asking for first round money? Who wants to be an agent for this guy?
You could go ahead and ask for first round money.
Doesn't mean you're going to
but
get it.
I mean, I think the one thing that people should know is that a lot of this is, I don't say pre-orchestrated, because a lot of things can change. But if, say, the Diamondbacks or the Rays, one of these teams with multiple picks, takes a guy who's projected as a second rounder, and it depends on who's projecting this, by the way.
Right.
My second rounder might be Jim's first rounder. It is a subjective art form. But if that guy is being taken in the first round, they've had the conversation about what they're going to be willing to sign for. Because of the bonus pool and how it works, you can spread your money around. If a team like the Rays takes a second or third round projected pick in the first, it's because they're going to aggressively go after another player later. So they know going in before they're taken what that number is likely going to be.
Yeah, I'd say I think people overestimate sometimes the amount of times teams want to cut a deal. That does happen. It's more important to know what you're going to pay the guy, so you can then plan for your later picks. And so if they're pushing you up, if you're not a consensus first rounder and they're pushing you into the first round, if I'm the agent, if I'm doing my job right, I know where my guy's going to go. I know where his floor is. The team that's telling me, hey, we're not going to let Scott Braun get past 58. We'll pay him slot here.
Scott Braun's a first rounder, Jim.
Well,
Come on.
Second to fourth rounder is what I heard. But so anyway, if you're the agent, you got to know where the floor is on your guy, and then you negotiate up from that.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. All right, so let's get to JBFaz1213 with this tweet with all the buzz on overslot and underslot deals. So similar question here. Any surprise drops or risers you see in round one? And he even gives us a suggestion. Maybe Hunter Bishop falling to the Phillies at 14. I wonder who his favorite team is.
Yeah, you wonder. No, it's and I don't think this is so much because of overslot and underslot deals that Hunter Bishop's asking for a lot of money. There's always going to be a guy or two who falls because there'll be a surprise guy who jumps up and pushes everybody down. And I think, there's 3 names that are going around. Like, you hear C.J. Abrams a little bit of the top guys, that he's the most, of the 6 hitters who are probably going 1 through 6, he's the most likely who could fall. I don't necessarily buy that he's going to, but that's out there. I think Hunter Bishop, who I thought was probably going to go 8 to the Rangers, could be falling. He could get down to the Phillies at 14. He could go in between. Corbin Carroll's another guy. George Kirby a little bit. It's ever changing. And like I said, there'll be somebody that neither of us sees coming who goes like 14th overall, which is the Phillies. I'm just picking them at random, and then pushes guys down too.
Yeah, and Hunter Bishop is funny. I keep having teams asking me about him, and I had number 8 to the Rangers, and I think if I had a file right now, I'd probably stick with it because I don't have his. There are some other teams looking for college bats before the Phillies pick at 14 that I could see them getting in on Hunter Bishop. I mean, the Twins have been, linked to college hitters. If Hunter Bishop is there, I think even the Blue Jays, even though they haven't necessarily been associated with college hitters, if suddenly Hunter Bishop is there, they might consider that. So, yeah, I think he could get to 14, but there are several teams in between 8 and 14 that would have an interest in him.
Yeah, chances are slim. Let's do one more tweet on the Edward Jones chatting cage, then we'll get to the lightning round. This is from Adam. Why is Nick Lodolo the top pitching prospect? Is he your top pitching prospect?
He is, and I think he's a top pitching prospect. But there are guys who are going to go in the first round who have better stuff. I think he's the guy who gives you the most certainty as a starter. He's got the longest track record as a starter. This has been his best season, but he's started for 3 years at TCU, which is a top-level program. He's got 3 pitches. He throws strikes. Guys like the delivery. The other guys, you're talking, Alek Manoah, I mean, he's a big dude. You could see some reliever risk there. Jackson Rutledge, you got 1 year at a junior college, and he's a huge guy with a short arm action. The high school guys always scare teams a little bit because they're high school guys. Zach Thompson of Kentucky is the other college pitcher. He had a shoulder issue that failed a physical out of high school, and he had elbow problems last year that cost him a couple months. So it's part, I think, because Lodolo's got a lot going on for him, but also he's got clearly the highest floor among those guys too.
Yeah, and there isn't a Hunter Green in this draft class in terms of a high school guy that vaults to the top. I mean, Matthew Allen is our top high school arm, and he's really good, but he's not so much better than the sort of relative safety of a guy like Lodolo.
You know how this lightning round works?
No.
Bunch of questions. Whatever comes to your mind first. Real quick answers. Give me a sentence, whatever it is. Okay.
Are we both answering these?
I'll go back and forth. Yeah, both of you giving me answers. I'll go back and forth with you guys. So, Jim, since you wanted to volunteer, have you ever had a perfect mock draft?
No, but I will brag here.
Please.
In 2005, I got the first 18 picks in a row correct.
That was the first time I had ever done a mock draft in my life. And I did that, and I said, what did I just get myself into here? Why am I doing this?
I got to compete with this guy. What is this?
Yeah, it was nuts.
Yeah, but that was the legendary one moment, right?
It was. It's going to be hard to ever top.
Yes. What's the most interesting draft that you've ever covered? Is there a year that stands out for you, Jonathan? Or even in the past few years, one that you really liked?
Well, I think that I kind of go to this. I'm no longer lightning rounding this, but that 2005 draft was so good, and it was early on in my draft. That is legendary now, I think, in terms of the amount of talent that was in that draft class. I mean, the amount of all-star caliber players that came from that. And then just, some of the drafts that we've had here when we had the critical mass of players in the studio, that's always been fun.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go all the way back to my first draft I covered for Baseball America,
1965.
No, not 1960. I was not born yet. But no, 1989, because you had Ben McDonald, who at that point, he was basically Steven Strasburg before Strasburg. He was the most preordained #1 pick of all time. John Olerud was this unbelievable hitter who had an aneurysm and missed half the season, and he fell to the 3rd round, and the Blue Jays slow played it perfectly and got him signed at the end of the summer without putting too much pressure on him. I think you had 3 unsigned first-round picks, which was kind of a crazy year. McDonald and Olerud at the time got like $850,000 big league contracts, which was just like, the sky is falling, because I think the bonus record was 200-something at that point. So there was a lot of crazy stuff going on in 1989, and it kind of, McDonald and Olerud got the ball rolling. Bonuses just exploded from there forward.
Okay, just names, nothing else.
Okay.
Ready? Starting now, best hitter in this draft.
Andrew Vaughn.
Adley Rutschman.
Best pitcher in this draft. Jonathan?
Matthew Allen.
Jim?
Nick Lodolo, but if I go high school, I'm going Quinn Priester.
Best athlete in this draft, Jim.
I'm missing somebody obvious here.
I'll go with Hunter Bishop.
Greg Jones is pretty good.
Greg Jones, Hunter Bishop was a football player in high school. So.
There you go.
Oh, wait. We
got
got the
one
2
more?
football players, Maurice Hampton and Jerry Neely.
Oh, yeah. Those
Okay,
guys play
so
college
both.
football. Yeah, okay.
Look them up. You'll hear their names. Which prospect is most overlooked in this draft?
Overlooked. God, we spent so much time on these guys that.
Do you have a sleeper or anybody?
Well, I'm going to give my overlooked guy. I think he's overlooked because of his age. Brett Beatty, I think, is one of the best hitters in this draft.
Get on your soapbox,
I'm
Jim.
getting
Come
on the soapbox again. But he's 19 and a half
It's your guy.
years old, and their teams have this age algorithm
that's
that
a
don't want
really
any
good
part
one.
of him. I could see where if you discount him because of that, the guy's an unbelievable hitter, and I think he gets undersold by clubs because of the age.
I'll go with Ryan Garcia at UCLA. He's their Friday night starter, top-ranked team. Not plussed up, but really knows how to pitch. I was hearing back into the first round for him. So I'll throw him
Yeah,
in.
I was gonna say the same thing. I'm hearing he might sneak in.
Yeah, yeah.
How about best player comp you ever had? I know you love them comps.
Oh,
Give me one that was just so easy.
No. I hate player comps.
I know you do.
I'll give you
I
two.
know you do.
I had a wild throwing college pitcher in North Carolina a couple years ago. Somebody comped Kenny Powers, which I like.
Yes,
That's
what we're
I don't
looking
have
for.
anything like that. I have nothing like that.
Fine, then you have to do this one. What
You know
will
what? Hold on.
Yeah,
You know
got
what?
one?
The Andrew Vaughn to Jeff Bagwell one is the one I kind of
Oh,
like that
yeah.
one.
Okay. Right.
I'm liking that one. And I can't. It's not one I made. Others have made it.
What will you do once the draft is over, besides take a deep breath?
Sleep.
Sleep.
Start working on signings because it starts to happen. Well,
Jim's not gonna sleep.
We're not going to get a break. We
You're
have
not gonna
signings
sleep,
and we
Jim?
got to revamp the MLB.
He doesn't need
Pipeline
to
Top
sleep. He just
100.
needs to plug in.
So,
Keep writing. Keep writing. These guys are great. You're going to see them on MLB Network, on MLB.com. We'll do day 2 and 3 all together right here, actually. So thank you so much for taking part, or at least watching here at the Edward Jones Chatting Cage. I'm Scott Braun for Jim Callis and Jonathan Mayo and our entire MLB crew. Thanks for watching. See you next time.